Well, welcome, everybody. It is 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on this Wednesday, February 4th. And we are so glad to have you with us for a very special series that Unlimited Wisdom is doing called Outwitting the Devil. It's a book by Napoleon Hill. And we have a very special gentleman who is with us today, who is our instructor. He is our guide through this book, and we're taking this chapter by chapter. So today we're going to go into chapter 2, and we are very excited to introduce this gentleman because he's helped us in other projects here. We did, I think it was a couple years ago, Mastering the Science of Getting Rich, and it was he who really introduced us to a lot of different concepts and a lot of different ideas about the book, The Science of Getting Rich. And he is about ready here to do it in the same way for Outwitting the Devil, a book by Napoleon Hill. And this gentleman is Dana Scranton. He studied at the University of Wyoming, Northwest College, and Stanford University. And he works at making a difference, teaching people how to create an entrepreneurial lifestyle of fun, profit, freedom, and impact. And again, I'm going to share this quote because it is so perfect for Dana as we introduce him. He says that my purpose in life is to help people create an authentic life of freedom of their choosing and on their terms. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started our series, Chapter 2 of Outwitting the Devil, with Dana Scranton.
Well, thank you, Craig, and thank you one and all for being here today. Uh, we've gone through a few chapters here. There's, just to remind you, there's kind of a disconnect between the book and the audio. So today in the book chapter alignment is actually chapter 3, which is entitled A Strange Interview with the Devil. So today's kind of exciting because in the prior sessions, we've gone through the background, Napoleon Hill's journey and some of the things that happened to him along the way. And today we're actually going to get to hear him have it out with the devil. So before we go there, though, I just want to go over a few little preliminaries here. Let's make the assumption that I can do this. Yeah, there we go. Got to get out of full screen mode. So we will get the screen pulled up here. Bear with me. That's the one. So with any luck, you should see chapter 3 up on the screen.
We see it.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go through this, just kind of do a little preliminary, and then we'll launch into this particular chapter. So when in need, ask. And just to kind of recap, Hill found himself in dire distress. After several cycles of success and failure, he landed, as did millions of people, in the grips of the Great Depression. And that had control of the world and his life. And like nearly everyone else, doubt, uncertainty, and fear and chaos was just the norm every single day. So he was pondering his personal situation, and he asked himself during this thought process, is there any purpose in teaching the laws of success to the world in such a state of distress? And keep in mind that at this point, he had actually finished The Law of Success. That book, it wasn't a book at that point. What it really was an 8-volume set of books. And so he questioned himself, who am I to teach the world that's in such despair right now? Well, when you ask, you tend to receive an answer. So a thought came to him, what the heck? Why not just take this philosophy of self-determination and success to the world and see if it really works? I mean, what better time than now? And so that's what he did. But he also saw this as an opportunity to validate something that he had been preaching, his mantra, and that is that every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. So off he went to do that. In the process of thinking about this, he kind of came up with another thought. He personally was a mess. He was down and out, and he's sitting here thinking about why he didn't bring this to the world and should he, and all the other thoughts that probably went with that. And one of them was he was demoralized. He was ashamed of being the person who had been out there pitching the law of success, and he himself wasn't practicing it. So he had doubt, who am I to go into the world and push this when I can't even do it myself? So he asked another question. Okay, so what is the strange power that has taken me from being enthusiastic and engaged and turned me into a useless, apathetic individual? So, very good questions. Well, in the process of asking those questions and receiving what is what we've talked about through the other self, he basically got the message. Well, okay, great. I have nothing to lose. I'm going to take this to the world. And so he began teaching and preaching, and he found a world that was eager and hungry to hear what he had to say. Now, if you go back way to the beginning when he met Andrew Carnegie, and he went in and he pitched to Andrew that he wanted to pay for his law school expenses by interviewing and writing about the successful people in the world. What did they do to become successful? And Andrew told him, well, that's fine and good, but what you might also want to do is ask, what failures did they encounter? Because failure has a way of teaching far more than success. So, he figured, great, I'm going to do that. So the other self said, bring it to the world. And that's what he did. And what that led to was that, well, the law of success, which was already in an 8-volume set, it turned into, over the course of 1929 into 1937, it turned into what we know as Think and Grow Rich, one of the most pivotal books ever published for self-help and success. Well, that last question that he asked, which he had to answer, what power had control over him? What was it that forced him into the depths of despair? So he decided to pursue that question. He didn't know exactly how, and I can't find anywhere exactly when he decided to pursue it, but it was obviously between 1929 and 1937 somewhere, because Outwitting the Devil went into hiding in the 1938 time frame. It was manuscript put away and not released until 2011. So the question was, what strange power could be responsible for this pathetic state of being that he was living? Well, he did ask for an answer somewhere along the way as to what that power was. And I would allude to the fact that, remember the conversation that he had with Thomas Edison, which was not in the audio book. That is in the print book. But in that conversation he had with the then deceased Thomas Edison, they went back and forth with him asking questions about what was it that was this energy source or this means to communicate with this other self. And Edison came back and basically told him that it's energy. It's packets of energy, elements of energy, negative and positive, that make up all things. So he took that and he ruminated on it, and he came to the conclusion that, well, the devil is responsible because the devil is, evil. There's a negative, impression on the world out there, and this guy's got to be the reason for it. But he overcame that. He did not understand how he did it. It was determination. It was making up his mind that he was going to take this book to the world and become the person that he was before he became the person that he is. And so he didn't really understand it, but he was bound and determined to find out what it was that he did that allowed him to break the grips of this negative energy and then to be able to teach it to others to do the same. So who would know the answer to the question? Well, in his mind, he already knew that if the devil was involved, the devil must be the negative side of this. And so how are you going to find out what the answers are? Well, you go to the devil. That's how you're going to find out. So meet the devil. Now, before we get into it, remember that Hill's discovery of his other self may have opened a portal of communication beyond the physical world. And the realization that that happened gave him an insight. And that encounter with Edison that taught him about these imaginary, well, not imaginary, but apparently real energy elements, those all kind of accumulated in his mind. And he figured, well, I've got to go to the source, as I said, meet the devil. And so that's what he did. So in a manner of speaking, he demanded of infinite intelligence that he get access to the devil. Well, and so it is. So Robert, punch it and let's go. I'll get off the stop share. There we go.
All right, Dana, great intro. Share with sound.
Chapter 3: A Strange Interview with the Devil. While you are listening to the interview with the devil, you will recognize from the brief description I have given you of the history of my life what a desperate effort the devil made to muzzle me before I gained public recognition. You will understand also, after listening to the interview with the devil, why the interview had to be preceded by this personal history of my background. Before you begin to listen to the interview, I want you to have a clear picture of the final fling the devil had at me, and be it remembered with profit that it was this final fling which gave Mercy a chance to turn and twist the devil's tail until he squealed out his confession. The devil's undoing began with the Depression in 1929. Through that unfortunate turn of the wheel of life, I lost my 600-acre estate in the Catskill Mountains. My income was entirely cut off. The Harriman National Bank, in which all my funds were deposited, folded up and was wiped out. Before I realized what was happening, I found myself caught up in a spiritual and economic hurricane which evolved into a worldwide catastrophe of such force that no individual or group of individuals could withstand it. While waiting for the storm to cease and the stampede of human fear to stop, I moved to Washington, D.C., the city from which I made my start after my first meeting with Andrew Carnegie, nearly a quarter of a century previously. There seemed nothing for me to do except sit down and wait. All I had was time. After 3 years of waiting without tangible results, my restless soul began to push me back into service. There was little opportunity for me to teach a philosophy of success when the whole world around me was in the midst of abject failure, and men's minds were filled with the fear of poverty. This thought came to me one evening while I was sitting in my automobile in front of the Lincoln Memorial on the Potomac River within the shadow of the Capitol. With it came another thought. The world had staged an unprecedented depression over which no human being had control. With that depression had come to me an opportunity to test the philosophy of self-determination, to the organization of which I had devoted the better portion of my adult life. Once more, I had the opportunity to learn whether my philosophy was practical or mere theory. I realized, too, the opportunity had come to test a claim I had made hundreds of times, that every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. What, if any, I asked myself, were the advantages to me of a world depression? When I began to look for a direction in which I might move to test my philosophy, I made the most shocking discovery of my life. I discovered that through some strange power which I did not understand, I had lost my courage. My initiative had been demoralized. My enthusiasm had been weakened. Worst of all, I was sorely ashamed to acknowledge that I was the author of a philosophy of self-determination, because down deep in my heart I knew, or thought I knew, that I could not make my philosophy pull me out of the hole of despair in which I found myself. While I floundered in a state of mental bewilderment, the devil must have been dancing a jig of rejoicing. At last he had the author of the world's first philosophy of individual achievement pinned under his thumb and paralyzed with indecision. But the devil's opposition must have been at work too. As I sat there in front of the Lincoln Memorial, reviewing in retrospect the circumstances which had so many times previously lifted me to great heights of achievement, only to let me drop to equal depths of despair, A happy thought was handed over to me in the form of a definite plan of action by which I believed I could throw off that hypnotic feeling of indifference with which I had been bound. In the interview with the devil, the exact nature of the power by which I had been deprived of my initiative and courage has been described. It is the same power with which millions of others were bound during the Great Depression. It is the chief weapon with which the devil ensnares and controls human beings. The sum and substance of this thought which came to me was this. Despite the fact that I had learned from Andrew Carnegie and more than 500 others of equal business and professional achievements that noteworthy achievements in all walks of life come through the application of the master mind, the harmonious coordination of two or more minds working to a definite end, I had failed to make such an alliance for the purpose of carrying out my plan to take the philosophy of individual achievement to the world. Despite the fact I had understood the power of the master mind, I had neglected to appropriate and use this power. I had been laboring as a lone wolf instead of allying myself with other and superior minds.
The interview with the devil may have occurred as Hill sat at the foot of the Lincoln Memorial. Was it real? It was real to Hill and created the framework for how he lived his life and shared his revelations with us, his students. To reiterate Hill's earlier words, he had discovered that every great leader of the past, whose record I have examined, was beset by difficulties and met with temporary defeat before arriving. Hill also describes in his works how these great leaders surrounded themselves with masterminds. They conquered their inner struggles with adversity and then used the power of the mastermind to propel their successes. Consider how you could form a mastermind group, a team, to help you overcome adversity and propel you to success.
An analysis. Let us now briefly analyze the strange interview you are about to begin. Some who listen will want to ask after they finish it, did you really interview the devil, or did you merely interview an imaginary devil? Some may wish the answer to this question before they begin the interview. I will answer in the only truthful way I could answer, by saying that the devil I interviewed may have been real, just as he claimed to be, or he may have been the creation of my own imagination. Whichever he was, whether real or imaginary, is of little importance compared with the nature of the information conveyed through the interview. The important question is this: does the interview convey dependable information which may be helpful to people who are trying to find their places in the world? If it conveys that sort of information, no matter whether it is conveyed in the form of fact or fiction, then it is worthy of serious analysis through careful reading. I am not concerned in the least as to the real source of the information, or as to the real nature of the devil whose astounding story you are about to hear. I am concerned only with the fact that the devil's confession squares perfectly with what I have seen of life. I believe the interview does convey information of practical benefit to all who have not found life to be friendly, and the reason I believe so is the fact that I have made the central theme of this book yield to me all the happiness I need in the form best suited to my nature. I have had experience with enough of the principles mentioned by the devil to assure me that they will do exactly what he says they will. That is enough for me. So I pass the story of the interview on to you for whatever you may be able to make it pay in useful dividends. Perhaps you will get the greatest values if you accept the devil as being what he claims himself to be, relying upon his message for whatever it may bring you that you can use, and not worrying as to who the devil is or whether he exists. If you want my honest personal opinion, I believe the devil is exactly who he claims to be. Now, let us analyze his strange confession. After forcing his way into the consciousness of the devil, Mr. Earthbound began the unwilling interview with questions which could not be evaded.
Hill, Mr. Earthbound, interrogates the devil in an almost courtroom atmosphere. Somehow, the devil is obligated to give complete and accurate answers. How was this done? Perhaps Hill forced the devil's confession by forming a mastermind, possibly with his wife. The harmonious coordination of two or more minds working to a definite end, to exert the power of God, the great storehouse of infinite intelligence wherein is stored all that is, all that ever was, and all that can ever be. Perhaps Hill won the right to accurate responses by being a thinker in control of his own mind, who mastered all his fears. Thanks to this mastery and control, Hill could demand true and accurate responses from the devil. In any event, Hill forces the devil to expose his tricks and wiles so that we may counter them and avoid the pitfalls in our lives.
Here begins the interview with the devil. I have uncovered the secret code by which I can pick up your thoughts. I have come to ask you some very plain questions. I demand that you give me direct and truthful answers. Are you ready for the interview, Mr. Devil?
Yes, I am. But you must address me with more respect. During this interview, you will address me as Your Majesty.
By what right do you demand such royal respect?
You should know I control 98% of the people of your world. Do you not think that entitles me to rate as royalty?
I had an extremely adverse reaction to hearing the devil referred to as Your Majesty when I first read this interview. Then I realized that Hill probably intended to create just that reaction.
Have you proof of your claim?
Yes, plenty of it.
Of what does your proof consist?
Of many things. If you want answers, you will address me as Your Majesty. Some things you will understand, some you will not. In order that you may get my viewpoint, I shall describe myself and correct the false notions people have of me and my place of abode.
That is a fine idea, Your Majesty. Start by telling me where you live, then describe your physical appearance.
My physical appearance? Why, my dear Mr. Earthbound, I have no physical body. I would be handicapped by such an encumbrance as those in which you earthbound creatures live. I consist of negative energy, and I live in the minds of people who fear me. I also occupy 1/2 of every atom of physical matter and every unit of mental and physical energy. Perhaps you will better understand my nature if I tell you I am the negative portion of the atom.
Oh, I see what you are preparing to claim. You are laying the foundation to say that if it were not for you, there would be no world, no stars, no electrons, no atoms, no human beings, nothing. Is that correct?
True. Absolutely true.
Well, if you only occupy 1/2 of energy and matter, who occupies the other half?
The other half is occupied by my opposition.
Opposition? What do you mean?
The opposition is what you earthbound call God.
So you have the universe divided up with God. Is that your claim?
Not my claim, but the actual fact. Before this interview is finished, you will understand why my claim is true. You will also understand why it has to be true, or there could be no world such as yours, no earthbound creatures such as you. I am no beast with a forked tongue and a spiked tail.
But you do control the minds of 98 out of every 100 people. You said so yourself. Who causes all the misery in this 98% devil-controlled world if you do not?
I have not said that I do not cause all the misery of the world. On the other hand, I boast of it. It is my business to represent the negative side of everything, including the thoughts of you earthbound people. How else could I control people? My opposition controls positive thought. I control negative thought.
How do you gain control of the minds of people?
Oh, that is easy. I merely move in and occupy the unused space of the human brain. I sow the seeds of negative thought in the minds of people so I can occupy and control the space.
You must have many tricks and devices by which you gain and hold control of the human mind.
To be sure, I employ tricks and devices to control human thought. My devices are clever ones, too.
Go ahead and describe your clever tricks, Your Majesty.
One of my cleverest devices for mind control is fear. I plant the seed of fear in the minds of people, and as these seeds germinate and grow, through use, I control the space they occupy. The 6 most effective fears are the fear of poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death.
Which of these 6 fears serves you most often, Your Majesty?
The first and the last, poverty and death. At one time or another during life, I tighten my grip on all people through one or both of these. I plant these fears in the minds of people so deftly that they believe them to be their own creation. I accomplish this end by making people believe I am standing just beyond the entrance gate of the next life, waiting to claim them after death for eternal punishment. Of course, I cannot punish anyone, except in that person's own mind, through some form of fear. But fear of the thing which does not exist is just as useful to me as fear of that which does exist. All forms of fear extend the space I occupy in the human mind.
Your Majesty, will you explain how you gained this control over human beings?
The story is too long to be told in a few words. It began over 1,000,000 years ago when the first man began to think. Up to that time I had control over all mankind, but enemies of mine discovered the power of positive thought, placed it in the minds of men, and then began a battle on my part to remain in control. So far I have done quite well by myself, having lost only 2% of the people to the opposition.
I take it from your answer that men who think are your enemies. Is that right?
It is not right, but it is correct.
Tell me something more about the world in which you live.
I live wherever I choose. Time and space do not exist for me. I am a force best described to you as energy. My favorite physical dwelling place, as I have told you, is in the minds of the Earthbound. I control a part of the brain space of every human being. The amount of space I occupy in each individual's mind depends upon how little and what sort of thinking that person does. As I have told you, I cannot entirely control any person who thinks.
You speak of your opposition. Just what do you mean by that?
My opponent controls all the positive forces of the world, such as love, faith, hope, and optimism. My opponent also controls the positive factors of all natural law throughout the universe, the forces which keep the earth and the planets and all the stars balanced in their courses. But these forces are meek in comparison with those which operate in the human mind under my control. You see, I do not seek to control stars and planets. I prefer the control of human minds.
Where did you acquire your power, and by what means do you add to it?
I add to my power by appropriating the mind power of the Earthbound as they come through the gate at the time of death. 98 out of every 100 who come back to my plane from the Earth plane are taken over by me, and their mind power is added to my being. I get all who come over with any form of fear. You see, I am constantly at work, preparing the minds of people before death, so I can appropriate them when they come back to my plane.
Will you tell me how you go about your job of preparing human minds so you can control them?
I have countless ways of gaining control of human minds while they are still on the Earth plane. My greatest weapon is poverty. I deliberately discourage people from accumulating material wealth because poverty discourages men from thinking and makes them easy prey for me. My next best friend is ill health. An unhealthy body discourages thinking. Then I have countless thousands of workers on Earth who aid me in gaining control of human minds. I have these agents placed in every calling. They represent every race and creed, every religion.
Who are your greatest enemies on Earth, Your Majesty?
All who inspire people to think and act on their own initiative are my enemies. Such men as Socrates, Confucius, Voltaire, Emerson, Thomas Paine, and Abraham Lincoln. And you are not doing me any good either.
Is it true that you use men who have great wealth?
As I have already told you, poverty is always my friend because it discourages independence of thought and encourages fear in the minds of men. Some wealthy men serve my cause, while others do me great damage, depending on how the wealth is used. The great Rockefeller fortune, for example, is one of my worst enemies.
That is interesting, Your Majesty. Will you tell me why you fear the Rockefeller fortune more than others?
The Rockefeller money is being used to isolate and conquer diseases of the physical body in all parts of the world. Disease has always been one of my most effective weapons. The fear of ill health is second only to the fear of poverty. The Rockefeller money is uncovering new secrets of nature in 100 different directions, all of which are designed to help men take and keep possession of their own minds. It is encouraging new and better methods of feeding, clothing, and housing people. It is wiping out the slums in the large cities, the places where my favorite allies are found. It is financing campaigns for better government and helping to wipe out dishonesty in politics. It is helping to set higher standards in business practice and encouraging businessmen to conduct business by the golden rule, and that is not doing my cause any good.
What about these boys and girls who are said to be on the road to hell? Are you in control of them?
Well, I can answer that question only with yes and no. I have corrupted the minds of the young by teaching them to drink and smoke, but they have me baffled through their tendency to think for themselves.
You say you have corrupted the minds of the young people with liquor and cigarettes. I can understand how liquor might destroy the power of independent thought, but do not see what cigarettes have to do with helping your cause.
You may not know it, but cigarettes break down the power of persistence. They destroy the power of endurance. They destroy the ability to concentrate. They deaden and undermine the imaginative faculty, and help in other ways to keep people from using their minds most effectively. Do you know I have millions of people, young and old of both sexes, who smoke 2 packages of cigarettes a day? That means I have millions of people who are gradually destroying their power of resistance. One day I shall add to their habit of cigarette smoking other thought-destroying habits, until I shall have gained control of their minds. Habits come in pairs, triplets, and quadruplets. Any habit which weakens one's willpower invites a flock of its relatives to move in and take possession of the mind. The cigarette habit not only lowers the power of resistance and discourages persistence, but it invites looseness in other human relationships.
I never thought that cigarettes were a tool of destruction, Your Majesty, but your explanation throws a different light on the subject. How many converts to the habit do you now claim?
I am proud of my record. Millions are now victims, and the number is increasing daily. Soon I shall have most of the world indulging in the habit. In thousands of families I now have followers of the habit, including every member of the family. Very young boys and girls are beginning to take up the habit. They are learning how to smoke by observing their parents and older brothers and sisters.
Which do you consider to be your greater tool for gaining control of human minds, cigarettes or liquor?
Without hesitation, I would say cigarettes. Once I get a young person to join my 2-package-a-day club, I have no trouble in inducing that person to take on the habit of liquor, overindulgence of sex, and all other related habits which destroy independence of thought and action.
Remember, this was written in 1938, long before the addictive nature of tobacco was discovered. Here, as elsewhere, Napoleon Hill is far ahead of his time in some of his medical and sociological opinions.
Your Majesty, when I began this interview, I had you all wrong. I thought you were a fraud and a fake, but I see now that you are quite real and very powerful.
Your apology is accepted, but you need not have bothered. Millions of people have questioned my power, and I got most of them at the gate as they came over. I ask no person to believe in me. I prefer that people fear me. I am no beggar. I take what I want by cleverness and force. Begging people to believe is the business of my opposition, not mine.
Your Majesty will please pardon my rudeness, but I would not be able to look myself in the face again if I did not tell you, here and now, that you are the damnedest fiend ever to be turned loose on innocent people. I always had the wrong conception of you. I thought you were kind enough to let people alone while they were living, that you merely tortured their souls after death. Now I learn from your own brazen confession that you destroy their right to freedom of thought and cause them to go through a living hell on earth. What do you have to say to that?
I get what I want by exercising self-control. It is not so good for my own business, but I suggest you emulate me instead of criticizing me. You call yourself a thinker, and you are. Otherwise, you would never have forced this interview on me. But you will never be the sort of thinker that frightens me unless you gain and exercise greater control over your own emotions.
Let us get away from personalities. I came here to learn more about you, not to discuss myself. Please go ahead and tell me of the many tricks you have devised for gaining control of the human mind. What is your most powerful weapon just now?
That is a difficult question to answer. I have so many devices for entering human minds and controlling them that it is difficult to say which are the most powerful. Right at the moment, I am trying to bring about another world war. My friends here in Washington are helping me to involve America in the war. If I can start the world to killing on a wholesale basis, I shall be able to put into operation my favorite device for mind control. It is what you call mass fear. I used this device to bring about the other World War in 1914. I used it to bring about the economic depression in 1929. And if my opposition had not double-crossed me, I would now be in possession of every man, woman, and child in the world. You can see for yourself how near I came to world domination, the thing I have been struggling to attain for thousands of years.
Here, the devil claims to be working with both sides to instigate war, based on his sowing the seeds of fear throughout the world. This is the essence of what has come to be known in our time as terrorism and the response to it. Through Hill's work, the devil takes credit for not only both world wars, but also the Great Depression. It is easy to add the current economic collapse to his list of credits. Both war and economic collapse breed fear in people's minds and are certainly the work of the devil.
Yes, I see your point. Who wouldn't? You are a very ingenious manipulator of the minds of people. Is your devilish business carried on only through people of high position and great influence?
Oh, no. I use the minds of people in all walks of life. As a matter of fact, I prefer the type of person who makes no pretense of thinking. I can manipulate that sort of person without difficulty. I could not control 98% of the people of the world if all people were skilled in thinking for themselves.
I'm interested in the welfare of those people whom you claim to control. Therefore, I wish you to tell me all of the tricks by which you enter and control their minds. I want a complete confession from you, so begin with your cleverest trick.
This is suicide you are forcing on me, but I am helpless. So settle down, and I will place in your hands the weapon by which millions of your fellow Earthbound will defend themselves against me.
Okay, well, that leads us up to the next chapter, which in the book is chapter 4. We won't go into what that is. I'll just give you a preview. The title you can look up in your book. It's Drifting with the Devil. This is the single most powerful trick he uses. So you can read ahead on that or just wait until the next video. The one thing I noted in going through this audio is, once again, whoever put the audio together left out substantial portions of the book. And it's for the same reason they left out substantial portions earlier. It's because it contains some of the controversial dialogue that might just make the Audible book less attractive to certain people. But interestingly enough, my version of the Audible has all this in it. It's not, it's a few things are deleted, but certainly not everything. Anyway, having said that, what are your impressions of what you just heard? What the devil has disclosed to this point? Any
Well, Dana,
inputs?
could you share maybe one or two of those missing things so we kind of get an idea of what's
Yeah,
missing? Thank you.
yeah. Let me go back to that chapter here. Okay, all right. So where's the end of that? Yep. Well, for example, on page 102, when he says, "Who are your greatest enemies on earth, your majesty?" Well, he skips way ahead on that, but what it is that the devil's enemies are all who inspire people to think and act, and that includes Socrates, Confucius, Voltaire, Emerson, Paine. And then he says, Napoleon Hill says, "Is it true that you use men who have great wealth?" And yes, he went through and he talked about Rockefeller. And let's see, then he goes through, in fact, all the way up to page 105. He leaves a lot of that out. And much of it has to do with the blame that the devil puts on, well, not the blame, the allies of churches and schools, just like originally, up in the book when Napoleon Hill was talking about the impact of the way people think and instilling fear. That was highlighted in some depth here, where the devil goes after it and says, well, churches and schools and financial institutions are all my friends because they instill fear in people, and it's the fear that I use to control. So that was the bulk of what was missing. Also, going into the cigarette part, he gets into other elements of how teenagers, when they start smoking, get into sex and other things. He goes into a little bit greater detail in that explanation. Let's see where else. Yeah, those are pretty much, that's pretty much all of it. It's about 5 pages, if you will, that was left out, but that's what it was. It was blaming the churches and the schools once again, but this time going into it from the devil's perspective and articulating why what they do drives people to him.
Got it. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much for sharing that.
yeah.
And if people do want to share, go ahead and raise your hand. Very simple to do is put your cursor in the middle of the screen where you see all these lovely faces. On the bottom is a button that says raise hand. Click on that. We'll call on you in the order in which we receive your request. And I see one from Coach Bob coming in. So Coach Bob, there we go. Go ahead, unmute, and please share with us.
Hey, Dana. Yeah, I'm wondering what your feeling is on why do you think he used an interview format to talk to the devil? Can you hear me? Yeah. All right. I'm just wondering why you think he used a interview format to talk to the devil to get his points across rather than just talk about just the devil and how his feelings were on that.
Well, I think there's two reasons for it. I think one is just the human nature of wanting to hear a dialogue between one entity and another. In other words, if he were saying, you'd just be hearing it from him. So you'd have a one-sided story. But by bringing the devil into it as the counterpart, then basically what you've created is a human-like situation where you're talking to two different people of opposing views or different views. So that's probably the primary reason for doing it that way. Because that way he's not saying it, the devil is. But the other part of it is keep in mind that he was a lawyer by training. You know, that isn't really covered a lot in his books and his publications. It's mentioned that, you know, he went to law school. That's why he did what he did. In some of the books, it's mentioned that he had a law practice for a period of time, but he walked away from it to get into business. So I think what he's doing is he's falling back on that interrogation. And also what he wanted to do is he wanted to pin this evil dude down. Now, he couldn't do that if he's just telling a story about, well, this is what it is and that's what it is. He wanted to add the emotional impact of having the fiend, you know, the anti-good guy, the evil devil. He wanted to have that guy right there saying it as if, yep, people can identify that's an evil dude. I think that's why he did it.
Okay. And the other thing is, I just want to mention, where do you think he came up with that 98%? That seems pretty high. And,
I have no idea how he came up with that. I think what he was doing there was he was trying to make an impression that the vast majority of people fall into the category of those who are, and I'll, you're going to read the book, so I'll give you the punchline: drifting. Okay, the vast majority of people are drifting, and even today that's true. If you look at the 80-20 rule, of course, 20 is a long ways from 5 or 2, but the bottom line is what he's trying to impress upon people is that the vast majority of people are vulnerable, and they're vulnerable because they have fears. Now, back then, I doubt they had statistics to actually get to that number, but it's a scary number, and it forced you to ask the question.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's quite a 2%. I don't, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for answering those questions.
Coach Bob, thank you so much. And another hand is up. Let me see here. Hang on a second. Bill Shoemaker, go ahead, unmute and please share with us. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you, the amazing Craig Jackman. Yeah, Dana, I got the audio when it came out, I think 6 or 7 years ago. And all that is in there about what you were talking about. So I thought that was interesting. So they must have cut it out in a newer version, I would imagine. But personally, as a man on this planet, I can relate that I've pretty much been possessed by the devil most of my life. I had the 2-pack, my parents smoked, and actually my mom bought me cigarettes, so it wasn't a big deal. But as far as the drifting and control of the mind, I'm just now realized in my life, when I look back, how I really have been in control of the devil, like most of society, I would say. So I just wanted to point that out, that I recognize that now, and I'm gonna outwit that devil. So.
Well, it's kind of interesting because as Sharon Lecter points out, he was way ahead of his time with that statement. With that idea of the cigarettes being an influential
Right.
factor in leading people off the edge. Way back then, it was the popular thing. I mean, it was like the rage. If you
How
weren't doing
could,
it, you weren't
yeah,
cool.
how could
But
anybody know that? I mean, it had to be the
um,
devil.
well, if you follow the storyline, he was made to know that. A thought was placed in his mind and cultivated. That's one explanation.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating. One of my favorite books. So thank you for doing this. Love it. Man, soaking it up.
Bill, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Craig.
And let's go to Robert Hollis, who also has his hand up. Robert, go ahead, open up, and Terry Hollis, too. Go ahead and please share with us.
Well, Dana, again, thank you so much for bringing this to us. I knew we'd enjoy it, and I purposely wanted to be a person that actually got exposed to this the same time as everybody else. I purposely have not jumped ahead or done anything like that. And the word that I wrote down is this concept of resistance. You know what I mean? It's like if you talk to anybody that feels like they're addicted to something, they've lost the skill of resistance. Holy cow. And there's people all over the planet right now that says cigarettes are not even close to the dopamine that people are getting through death scrolling or doom scrolling. That algorithms and other things are out there right now that are so addictive to people that they can't stop scrolling. And even when they're scrolling, they're telling themselves, I should do something else that's more productive. And then the next thing they do is they're scrolling again. They're going through social media, and I personally am always catch myself. And it's usually not me going to social media to scroll. It's someone that says, "Hey, did you see this video? Hey, did you see this video? Hey, did you see this video?" And because they said it to me, why wouldn't I want to see the value in them thinking it was good for me? Once I watch it, I should be done. That does not happen. Sometimes I find myself even being distracted to the point where if I found a good video, why wouldn't I want to subscribe and find other videos that person also did? You know what I mean? Do a little research, see where they came from, and constantly not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is taking the good content and that I've worked on and the wisdom that I get and sharing it with other people. So now this would be another one because I really think too, this whole concept where people beat the crap out of themselves because they believe that they're just the bad person, the person that, can't be, can't focus, won't do what they need to do. And they constantly, like I do with the Dino, just constantly tell people that they got all this noise in their head, beating the crap out of themselves for not doing and spending time.
Yeah, yours is up there.
Spending time doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. The thing I find very interesting and I love about this so far, and I know it'll get better, is I think it's pretty interesting that you can blame it on the devil. That this is an opposition of a person that says that they're taking control. And like Bob said, I've seen this number, it's not just the 98%, but if you really pay attention to what the world is saying to us, it's now 99.1. You know what I mean? The devil is actually winning big time if we're using this because now you got Occupy Wall Street. And I was just telling Terry just today, it really blows my mind that I believe it was J. Paul Getty. I want to be corrected on this quote if it's not true. But J. Paul Getty once was saying that being happy and fulfilled and successful is the easiest thing on the planet. And the reason why is nobody else is trying. I mean, and he's an older person. I have no idea when he died, but he was saying that most people just believe that they're not worthy, they're not enough, that they can't learn things. And this is before the internet. I mean, virtually anything that you wanted to learn, you could learn. And you could also find examples of people that did change their thoughts and became successful. So we with the internet has made it so it's excuseless not to try. So now you got people out there that say, "Oh, woe is me," being the victimhood. But guess what? With the way that the world is today and the information and wisdom that's out there, keeping that excuse for poverty is you're just not using it. You know what I mean? You don't believe that's available, like being on here. And the last concept that I'll say is a lot of people don't know this about me, but some people that are very close to me do. Uh, I'm very analytical. I'm more science driven and math driven and analytical than anyone would ever think that I am. And so when you always hear about things that are like atoms and neutrons and stuff like that, when you always hear for every effort there's equal and effort equal and a opposite reaction. You know what I mean? And so all of a sudden, for in this interview to propose that there's something extremely positive out there, but that positivity, there's a negative with that atom. There's a negativity with virtually everything. There's always you look at magnets, you look at virtually anything that has to do with energy, electricity, metallurgy, everything has got this constant positive and negative approach. You know what I mean? And so to have Napoleon Hill be intelligent enough in that day and age of understanding that, well, with everything that's positive, there's a negative side. And that this negative side just seems so easy to get people to fear, false emotions, or false education appearing real. That, one of the things that I think that people are really upset about in this day and age is realizing that for whatever reason that the educational system that people are going through, it's like the whole joke was, well, why not allow the television or the electronics of the day to babysit the kids? And then they go from that algorithm into schools, whereas a lot of teachers, not all, but a lot of teachers are just not interested in changing a child, just getting them through the system. So now we're just pumping out the least educated people on the planet right now. And that's got to make it easier, if it's true, that the devil has, children before they even go to school, the child is already scared, is scared all the way through school with the division and the destruction that's happening in the world. And then you see all the stuff that's happening in the news and online. How can it possibly be where anyone's out there that's not afraid? It's like you really got to be around a group of people to not be afraid, not look at the world and go, man, it does look like what's the phrase? Going to hell in a handbasket. So that was just my quick input. You have anything? But yeah, that's and I think Faith said it. I don't need to speak for Faith, but I was going to look to see who said it. But him just going back and forth, and I'm sorry, it was Sandy. But that beginning part where he says, "Okay, you can interview me, but you got to call me the Majesty." And it's like people are like, "Well, hell no." It's like, because we understand by just mentioning something like that feels like you're giving power to it.
Yeah.
So when I see people addicted to anything, it's like, do you really believe being addicted to something is not destroying your resistance? It's like, It's the hero story right in front of our face. And it's like, so if I can get you weak on this, and I can get you weak on this, and I can get you weak on this, then you're just lying to yourself that because people go, I'm not addicted to that stuff. I could give it up in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? Yeah, really? Let's see ya. Let's see ya. So we hear now there's, fights happening when a parent takes a phone or an iPad away from a kid. So that's all I had to add.
Well, thanks, Robert. That's pretty insightful. And, it's resistance. Yeah. Yeah. Resistance to positive change, not resistance to accepting negativity. Negativity is almost a scapegoat. It's a way out. So,
Wow, that's
now there's
deep.
a book.
That's deep. Say that again. Resistance to positive change.
Yeah. Resistance to positive things. It's a way out for people. And, it's kind of like, I look at it like spinning a plate. If you ever watched the old, I think it was Ed Sullivan show, they have a guy come up on stage and he starts spinning plates on a vertical post. Then he runs around and he puts up like 6 or 7 plates all spinning. Well, if the positive energy is running around keeping the plates spinning to keep things where they should be and growing, negative energy just standing back and watching the plate idle down and fall down and break.
Oh, that's powerful.
So
That's
essentially,
powerful.
it's human nature to not spin the plate because it takes energy, it takes dedication, persistence, consistency. And without it, plate falls and breaks. Now, there's a book I would recommend if you really want to read something that'll kind of mess with your head. It's called The Parasitic Mind.
I think I've heard that.
Yeah, the subtitle is How Infectious Ideas Are Killing Common Sense. And it was written by the author and the author is Gad, G-A-D, and the last name Saad, S-A-A-D.
Wow, what a name.
Yeah, Gad Saad. And this book will it will illuminate the daylights out of what's going on today.
Wow.
It'll if it doesn't frighten you or put you in a state of anxiety and tension, then you aren't reading. You aren't reading.
I hope it gives you a solution to the problem.
Well, it does. But I'll tell you right now, Napoleon Hill was ahead of the game on it. He already gave you the solution. That's
Good.
coming in the future chapters. The solution is coming because, keep in mind that at the point that this interview supposedly took place, he was still looking for what it was that inoculated him against the influence.
Right.
And, he understands that it's keeping the negativity out of your life because negative energy has a way of magnetizing and drawing people down. It's like I say, that old 80-20 rule. In fact, there was one of the network marketing icons. What was his name? Larry. Anyway, he had the 15, what was it? The 15-10-85 rule. And that was that 85% of the people don't do anything.
Right. Yep.
15% of,
Yep.
What's that?
Yep. Absolutely right. Yep.
I don't know if Terry knows the person you're talking about. She's just stating the facts as true.
Yeah. I just agree with you. So.
Yeah, it's right on the tip of my tongue. I just can't remember it. But anyway, 85% of the people don't do anything. That's negativity. It's drawing them back. It's all the fears, the reluctance, and so forth. 15% of the people do something. They creep up on the hill and then they back off, up and back, and they just come into a routine that's just enough to get by.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 5% who do it.
Yep.
The 5% who have mastered what Napoleon Hill is talking about. So it's a real phenomenon. And if you look around, social media is a primary example of that. Like you say, doom scrolling.
Totally.
That's just every scroll is sucking the energy out of you. Every time a panel goes by, it's taking your energy with it. It's just crazy.
And if you're doom scrolling the wrong stuff, oh my God, I can't even imagine. I can't spend any time on X for whatever reason. I just don't like anything or don't do anything. I just go there if someone sends me a link, mostly Matt, and when Matt sends me something, it's usually always important, if not funny. So I wouldn't go there if he didn't think the video was interesting. And when I go there, if I ever get caught up in just a little bit of doom scrolling, it's like I'm constantly getting fed people fighting. It's just people kicking the shit out of each other. And of course, I went and watched a couple of them. So then it's easy for an algorithm to go, well, he didn't dislike it or leave, so I'll just give him some more. And it's like, it's crazy. They just get worse and worse. And the next thing, there's five guys beating up on one woman and I'm going like, what the hell? And so I like Facebook for me, it's like I've taught the algorithm of Facebook to feed me the information I like.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's usually positive stuff, motivating stuff, worship, car stuff. Yeah, it's dad jokes. Believe it or not, I just think they're funnier than hell because it just lifts my spirit when there's stupid dad jokes, and so there's my entertainment there. But thank you, Dana. Thank you so much.
Well, and the other aspect of it is a long time ago, one of my professors in I think the class was decision analysis, but he pointed out one day, it was the obvious, but most of us don't think about it, and that is the media. He said the news media would go broke if they didn't perpetuate negativity.
Yep. It doesn't matter what channel you're on.
Doesn't matter.
CNN, CBS,
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It's all shit.
And yeah, it's all crap, and you can see it. They'll take the simplest of things that are everyday, common day, and they'll try to find something to turn it into a negative impulse.
Yeah.
It gets worse too, you guys. It's worse on the internet and social media than it is on the news.
Sure.
So in general, the algorithms are trained much worse than at least the news, you shut it off.
Yeah.
Like the algorithms are smart enough to know, put two puppies between the thing that's going to piss you off. The news doesn't know that.
Yeah.
Good point, Matt. Great point.
Yeah, it's the FUD machine, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So
Wow. Yeah.
But that book that I referred to, you like I said, you can get it on Kindle, audiobook, hardcover, paperback. But if you buy it, just be prepared that you might take a while to read it, because it will scare the crap out of you, and then you'll be wondering, what can I do about this? Well, this community, unlimited wisdom is one of the things you do about it.
Yeah.
Right.
And going over books like this is another thing you do about it. Is make people aware, one person at a time, masses at a time.
Yeah.
That they're being manipulated and controlled. And this guy that Napoleon Hill is interviewing, this evil dude, His Majesty, arrogant pipsqueak, he's real in that sense.
Yeah, when you're thinking about the noise and the thoughts that you think about yourself, there's not a person on the planet that I've run into yet that not only are very perplexed and become upset and uneasy about the awful thoughts they have. And I always tell people when I expose them to that, the first thing that they feel is like, wow, I didn't tell anyone about these awful thoughts because I didn't want them to look weird at me. Some of the thoughts that people constantly have in their head are straitjacket material, and even thoughts of self-harm are harming others. And a majority of the people I don't think ever expose that virtually everyone has these thoughts. And I was thinking, how would you like to be a teenager or a young person having these thoughts, I thank God that Terry and I have a good enough relationship with Matt and Kyle, where Matt, told us, he's going, listen, I just think I'm a up straight psychopath. Yeah, this is before he met Hannah and now has Ezra. But he's like, listen, man, I don't have the right thoughts. I have bad thoughts. And that was I'm so happy that we had a relationship with him because I didn't have anyone to talk to. Nobody. I don't remember ever wanting to share some of the awful stuff that was going on in my head with another human being. And not that we have to share them, but um, just knowing that you're not alone, that there's this noise in your head and it says some really, really awful stuff. And yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Well, I do actually have one more question that was posed, and it's something that I think everybody should think about. And Dana, if you want to respond, or if you'd like to maybe just postpone the response,
Well,
that's
lob it
fine
out there.
too.
Yeah,
Uh,
we got a few more minutes if you can. Yeah.
okay, well, the only reason why I say that is because maybe it will be answered later in what we share.
Well, he
Melody
could say that.
Ryba,
Yeah.
Melody Ryba came up with this question: would you have the nerve to interview the devil?
Well, that doesn't really come up as a third party answer in the book, but I think Napoleon Hill answered that question. And it is that when you become desperate enough, when you find yourself in the deepest rut that you can imagine, um, I think then and only then you find yourself willing to make that interview.
Wow.
And I think that's one of the purposes of this book, even though he doesn't state it, but in so many words, he says, now that you know the truth, you can do your own interview and come up with your own truth. So,
That's good. The first download that I had, Craig, when you asked Dana that question, is I know that there's a lot of people. My grandma used to be one of them that said, when I get to heaven, I am going to have an incredible conversation with God because my mom was one of nine, and unfortunately, she had to bury a lot of her children, and virtually every one of them died of cancer. And so when we're going to funerals, I'd walk up and ask her, how she was doing, and she said, "There's not a person on the planet that should have to bury a child." And she said, "So when I get up there, he's going to get an earful." And my thought just happened that she's there and she's going, "Well, you know what I want to ask you?" And all he does is look at the devil and say, "Listen, your kids are listening to him.
yeah, yeah.
Your kids are listening to him."
Smoking, drinking.
Yeah. It's like, listen, smoking more than 2 packs, drinking, and working in the oil field. Those are all personal choices.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't be around that kind of chemicals all the time without them getting you. It's like it's sad but true.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Very true. Oh, and by the way, the name of that guy who quoted the 80-15-5 rule was Larry Thompson.
I should have got it.
Yeah.
Larry Thompson was my mentor's mentor.
Yeah. He
There was
was,
Larry Thompson and Larry Huff.
yeah.
Larry Thompson is still living, and Larry Thompson drag raced. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was the other way around. Larry Huff was a drag racer.
Yeah.
Yeah, Larry Huff
Thompson.
was the drag racer. Yeah.
And Larry Huff, kind of funny story with him. He was an upline of mine.
Oh wow.
And he went by the name Larry Stevens at that time because he didn't want people to connect him with being Larry Huff because then they always wanted something from him. So yeah,
That sounds like something he'd do.
drag racing, and then he got into drag boats, fast boats.
Oh my.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so So much for our Larry stories.
There you go.
Thank you.
We'll close us out. Thanks again, Dana. Thank you for all the people asking the questions. And Craig, let's close us out.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on the next chapter of Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. We will be resuming the next chapter, chapter 3, next week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. And I got to give shout outs to Melody Ryba, Bill Shoemaker, Coach Bob Johnson, and of course, Robert Hollis and Terry Hollis, and our featured guest, our featured host, Dana Scranton. Please give it up for Dana. Thank you so much, Dana, for sharing your knowledge on this incredible topic. And it's an incredible book. And I hope everybody is really enjoying it, and not only enjoying it, but learning from it. And that's the most important thing. On behalf of Unlimited Wisdom, we thank you so very, very much for joining us. Please don't forget to check out the calendar for daily events that we have here in our group. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, please be good to yourselves. Be cash. Bye-bye. There's a few things in the chat. Click the 3 dots in the meeting chat and then click Save Chat. It'll download to your computer once we conclude. I'm going to go ahead and open up so we unmute, I should say, and so that we can all say so long and have a great Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Awesome.
Love you.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Lisa.
Thanks,
Marie.
everybody.
Love you guys.
Angela, Bill,
Good
Dana.
night. Thank you, Dana.
Ezra's here, so he loves you guys.
Love ya. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.